had a good time, and so I'm happy that she's happy. But it was always weird. Like, she just, like, I really love improv, and I came out just to see the show, please. And we're like, okay, cool. We need suggestions. She's like, I really don't like the suggestion part. And I'm like, well, that's most of what we do is when we improvise is get suggestions. So, but we managed, and we had a great time, and she enjoyed herself.
Well, that's good. And I can actually relate to that because I remember I took a group of folks that managed some performers in the past, and I took a group of performers to Ohio. There was a reggae band, basically, and I took them to Ohio to do a performance. And we came back, it was in Ohio, but we came back through West Virginia to get to North Carolina. And I remember stopping at a convenience store. And at the convenience store, they were raffling off stuff. So I knew we were in a different kind of town when the raffle prize was basically a shotgun. So I'm sitting there going like, and we're sitting there. I'm a light-skinned African-American gentleman with a beard and mustache even back then, and of course I'm traveling with a bunch of rockers.
Right.
So I'm sure that they were already like had us on their radar, and then we're sitting there looking like, because I think I was the one that asked, "What is this? What's the raffle prize?" They're like, "Oh, it's just that shotgun up there."
Just that shotgun. Oh my God. I mean, that when I went cross country this summer, I had a friend who was moving to LA, and I volunteered to drive her. And we're both trans, but I've only been on hormones for a couple months this time. And she's like, I would really appreciate it. Like, I don't feel safe driving to the South. If you would just, be as male as you could, and I'm going to stay in the car. And I'm like, that's cool. I understand that's what you want to do. But I have a pair of rainbow framed sunglasses that I wear. And I try to remember to take them off whenever I get out of the car. But in Arizona, I got out of the car. I'm in the gas station with these rainbow glasses on. This guy comes up to me. He comments on my tattoo. And I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And that happens a lot. People like, very nice tattoo. And then this guy starts talking about his tattoos. And I'm like, okay, I really don't care. And then he's like, yeah, none of them hurt except this one. And he lifts up his shirt in the middle of this store, and he's got like a Confederate battle flag tattoo on his ribs. And I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. And I leave. And then I was just like, oh, is it because I had these rainbow sunglasses on? Like, this guy had to come and show me that he's got a Confederate tattoo or something. Yeah. But yeah, it's very it's weird going to different places. But I also feel since I don't mind traveling, and I guess that, I don't mind getting on stages where things might be weird. Like, I don't mind going through places where people haven't met trans people. I think it's super important that there are people out there who do that. I don't know if you guys want to do a reggae show in the gas station that was raffling off a rifle, but, it's important that you get your art out there, even to people who might not ordinarily be exposed to it.
That's very true. Don't know if we want to go back and try to do that again. Don't even know if those folks are still around because this was many years ago and everything. But that might be a scary thought to try to have a reggae show in the middle of that gas station in the middle of Pudunk, West Virginia. So I'm not sure that we'll go there and everything, but maybe we'll consider it at a later date that might be something worth doing. Now, you said that you went to Alabama. Now, I imagine that which part of Alabama were you in? And you said you were working with youth. So I imagine these were mostly of their Alabama African-American youth. So how were they able to cope with your background and everything? Because I'm imagining that that's probably an environment that they probably don't see a lot of trans people at. So I was wondering how you were able to teach them about tolerance and things of that nature while you were teaching them about improv. So I was just wondering how that experience happened and how it came about and what it was like for both you and them.
So how it came about is my day job, we bring in instructors to teach local public works people about transportation issues, and one of the instructors we hire is from Auburn, and he teaches this, and his wife also teaches like team building, and so she came up to do a workshop with us, and it was in 2015. In August 2015, I moved out. I'd been married for 22 years. I moved out. I was getting divorced. And I finally decided to embrace my femininity. And so she's teaching a class, and I've got red fingernails because it was like a Wednesday. And that Saturday, I was hosting a Pride event in Richmond that would be attended by like 1,000 people. And I was going out cross-dressed for the first time. And so she was like kind of impressed that like my first time out in public, I was going to do it for that. And And then she kind of talked about when they moved to Alabama, they bought this farm, and she just noticed that there was an African-American gentleman who was across the road and kind of watching them. And she went up and struck up a conversation, and he said, like his family actually has ties to this farm back, pre-Civil War days. And she just kind of felt like she just couldn't like plop her family down in the middle of this area and not be a part of the community. And so she kind of met with the people in the community and like formed a bond with them. And one thing they talked about was having these camps for kids where they do stuff. I know like they have a cowgirl camp where the girls get to ride horses. And so she met me. She wanted me to do this camp. And so I wasn't transitioning at the time, and I presented as my male self when I met these kids. And after my first week, we had a great time. I know one of the kids' father had passed like within the last 3 months, and was very shy at the start of the week, and by the end of the week was completely into it. She was texting me as I was driving home that like the kids were telling their moms that they won't shut up about me, and she's just like, you're probably the first white man who's not a sports coach that they've had a positive interaction with. And then about a week later, she's like, by the way, all the older kids found you on Facebook and know that you dress. And they were totally cool with it. And then I started hormones this April, and I'm totally transitioning, and the kids are so happy for me. And one of the kids even mentioned that, that I'm much happier when I'm LE. I seem like I'm happier, and it's true. And so, yeah, it was important for me to be like, a trans person that they know not only that just is trans, but they witnessed this transition. And I think it's important for me as well. Like my thing is, and I try to talk to other people who want to get into activism. It's like, you're going to go down and you're going to meet, like I said, these are all like kids who are 10 to 18. And like this lady said, they haven't had a positive interaction. Like they interact with authorities, teachers who might come down on them, but like, you have to realize there's that barrier. I have nothing but the best intentions, but I have to realize that maybe these kids aren't going to trust me right off the bat. And you can't get hurt or offended when it takes a while for these kids to warm up to you. And I feel like a lot of times people do, we'll just call it like white people. Like they're like, I'm here to help. Why aren't you appreciated? It's like, well, there's a whole lot of baggage in this country that like white people don't just show up and everyone's like, yay, everything's going to be great, So it was like a great lesson for me in just like how to help build a community, how to help people find their voice who haven't been given that opportunity. And so I'm really excited about this upcoming year. It's the first year we're going to end with a performance. And so I've downloaded like a bunch of Key and Peele sketches and like sketches that how do you criticize what's going on in your community? There's that. Like maybe Dave Chappelle's sketches where it's like, how do you criticize things like the overall community? How do you put people from your community? How funny is it to put people in your community in other positions? I don't know if you remember, like Dave Chappelle did the sketch, if George Bush was black, and I was just like, that's like take those aspects from your community and put them there, and kind of like that's a nice thing of like holding up a mirror to society. It's like, well, if black, quote unquote, black Bush was doing this, there'd definitely be a different pushback on it. So. Like I think it's been great for me. And it's also, like I said, it's been great all around, just like giving them an opportunity to realize like, hey, trans people aren't just people that I hear about on the news. And, this person is helping me find my voice. And honestly, if these guys went on and did comedy, oh my God, that would make me so happy. But even if they did whatever they decide to do, as long as if I was able to help them do that, I mean, that's really all I can. That'd be like a dream come true. It's just like these kids who you got to work with, and they found their voice and finally did with it. And you talk to them, and they come like you talk. There's one kid who's just like, I'm worried about when I go out in public, everyone sees we didn't go. I'm not from the community, so I don't know all the details, but like they see this other person in my family, and so now I'm negatively associated wherever I go because of this. And just being like, okay, well, what can we do to make you your own person? How do we separate you from those things? How do we How do we let you be your own person? And so, yeah, it's probably been the most fun I've ever had, and the most challenging thing I've ever done, and the most rewarding thing, and I love it.
Now, imagine that you said you have a one-person show that you're doing that has it happened already, or is it about to happen? And if so, how much of the history of your own personal history does it reflect on? Because like I said, you just mentioned that you were married at one point. Does it reflect on that, and also how your family came to terms with the fact that you were making this transition in life?
You know what? When I do my one-person show, I really don't even talk about being trans for the most part. And I've talked to a friend of mine who's also a stand-up comic, and she does a lot of material about being trans. And I feel like it kind of just depends on your personality. You know, like she's the kind of person who her thing is like, you know, her jokes, and she writes jokes about that and about her transitioning and her transness. And for me, I just prefer to be who I am, and I'm still like the same person. I still tell the same kind of jokes. I still skew society when I can. But yeah, I really don't talk about personal stuff in my one-person show or my stand-up. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I feel like every person just kind of has their material they feel comfortable doing. They have their style. And I would say, you know, one thing I've also been noticing is, you know, there are different types of activists, and there are different types of activism. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's better or worse. Like I said, I like to do these classes. I like to just go out and be in the community and kind of help uplift people who run into my path. And you know, this person was more part of a trans community than I am. And that's, you know, she's younger. You know, she's younger. She's been transitioning longer. So, I mean, you know, if you're like my age, you know, like you're in your late 40s, there wasn't even a trans support group when I was a kid. So, people my age are kind of behind the times on that. But like, that's very important to her. And she talks about her act, and she's hilarious. She's a million times funnier than me. She's a great stand-up. She's out in LA now. So yeah, I feel like, every person has what they want to talk about, what their story is. And, to be fair, I feel like if you watch me do improv before I started transitioning, when I transitioned, it probably didn't startle you. I mean, my life is on stage, just not overtly. I maybe talk about feelings and issues I'm going through without saying this is me. And that's the great thing about improv and acting is you can say what you want, but you don't have to say it's you. You get to play that quote-unquote character, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And how important do you feel activism is, whether it's in the trans community or just in general, as an artist? Because, like I said, we've had conversations with Desan, who's a long-time friend of mine, who's a spoken word artist, as well as Chris Freelon here in Durham, and they talk about what it means to them. But for you, how important do you feel the artist voice is to the activist community?
Oh, you know, I feel it's so important. I mean, that's what art is. You know, art, for me, comedy, and I'm not going to speak for other kinds of artists, but for me, comedy has always been a way to get people to see the world the way I see it, but in a funny way. You know, like, how do I get them to listen to what I have to say? And for me, it's just being funny. And I also feel like using art, like I said, using improv, teaching these kids in Alabama improv, doing this workshop for trans and non-binary people, and using this art form not only to do my own jokes during my show, but to teach these people how to find their own voice. And like doing improv kind of helps you out in those situations where you don't know what's going to happen because you've been doing it on stage. And I feel like I was joking with someone today. I was like, you know what? When I die, if there are 200 people who are as loud about speaking up for themselves as I currently am, then that would be perfect. Like if I just pass that on to other people. But that's what art is. Art is reflecting your society and its need for change. And so, and it's difficult because a lot of times you talk to comics and improvisers and they don't see it as art. And you're like, no, this is art. This is important. And it's disappointing when it's not treated important. You know, if you got to go on stage, like I said, the guy who's all his scenes are about trying to have sex with the women he's on stage with. It's like, that's lazy. That's garbage. Like, that's unimportant. I guess when it does become important is when the girl changes it on him, and